Just moments ago, the president of Liberty University, Jerry Falwell Jr., had a press conference, and he's on the line right now with breaking news. Jerry Falwell, what is Vexit?
Vexit. Virginia exiting, or part of Virginia exiting the state to become part of West Virginia. And the press conference was this afternoon in Martinsburg, West Virginia, with Governor Jim Justice, who's a good friend and an excellent governor, probably one of the best I think one of the best in the country. He's brought the state back. He's done a lot of the things there that President Trump's done for the country. And he's a businessman who has incredible experience in the private sector, and that's why I think he's done so well in the governor's house, in the governor's mansion. But he and I did a press conference, and he explained the history of how West Virginia became a state in 1863, and the Constitution of West Virginia, created at that time, allowed for a fluid border. And certain counties were in from the beginning. Other counties were invited, and about half of the other counties joined. And there's a standing invitation for those counties to join, but also the legislature there has just acted this month to invite all Virginia counties and cities, any ones that want to join West Virginia. It's happened twice in history. In 1792, Kentucky was cut off of Virginia to become a commonwealth of its own because the interests of Kentuckians were so divergent from the interests of the rulers in Richmond. And then in 1863, that's why West Virginia was formed, because their interests were completely different from Richmond. And so all we're saying is let's do it one more time. And we have to, because Northern Virginia is controlling every statewide election in Virginia, the Washington, D.C. suburbs. And that's not what our founders intended. Our founders intended the District of Columbia to be the place where the federal government and all of its employees resided. Well, they never anticipated that it would sprawl out to 20, 30 times its original size. And so I think now if we can't get the Congress to expand the boundaries of the District of Columbia to cover the whole Washington, D.C. metro area, then we're not left with much of a choice, because those people, the numbers are so great, they're electing all the statewide elected officials in Virginia, and we're ending up with crazy anti-Second Amendment rulings. We're ending up with just a complete dereliction of this government's duty to protect individual liberties, and then of course you got a governor who talks about killing babies after they're born.
So this is what I wanted to ask you. So we're talking to Jerry Falwell Jr. He's the president of Liberty University. He's just had a press conference in Martinsburg, West Virginia, with the governor of West Virginia, inviting the counties of Virginia to join his state, which is remarkable. The idea that the border was left open and fluid, counties can still join. When was this idea hatched? We saw last week 22,000 Americans outside the Senate House in Richmond protesting the governor's anti-Second Amendment rights. You just mentioned, I don't call him the governor of Virginia, I call him the butcher of Richmond, and this unbelievable radio interview where he said a child can be born and then we can decide whether it lives. Has this been gestating for a while? When did the governor, when did the people behind this idea decide, okay, let's announce it now? Has this been long in the making, or was it recent events that triggered it?
I heard about it from my son, who read about the West Virginia legislature introducing this bill. It's been a standing invitation for 150 years, but they're reintroducing. They've introduced a resolution that would reiterate that invitation, expand it in some ways. And when I heard about that, I called the governor, because he's a friend of mine, and he said, "You have to be up here tomorrow." So I went up there the next day. We talked. We had dinner in the governor's mansion, and our staff started working together. Took about a week to put together the press conference, and he is everybody says it's a long shot, and it probably is, but it's happened twice before. Virginia's divided twice in the past.
I think 1776 was the longest long shot of long shots. Okay,
that's exactly what I was going to say.
The most powerful empire in the world, and a bunch of colonials decide to split off. We're good at long shots.
A bunch of farmers formed a Continental Army, and it wasn't even a majority of Virginians who felt that way, but they still felt strongly enough that but there were two peaceful divisions of the state after that.
Right.
And so we want this to be a peaceful division. We don't want it to be like my family has been in Virginia since the 1600s. They've been in central Virginia since the 1700s. They fought in the Revolutionary War against the Brits. They've been in Lynchburg since 1834. And my family has actually lived on the property since that time, where Liberty University is now located. So I explained that in the press conference, and I said, this is why I have a right to speak on this issue, because I was here before this was even the United States.
You are vested in the area. We're talking to Jerry Falwell Jr. Follow him on Twitter, Jerry Falwell Jr., president of Liberty University, liberty.edu. In the last couple of minutes we have with you, Jerry, when we last spoke, you enlightened me to this initiative at your university called the Falkirk Center. And you used a phrase that really grabbed my imagination. And it combined Jefferson and Jesus. In the last few minutes we have, can you explain to our listeners here on America First why you put those two names together with your new initiative at Liberty University?
Faith and Liberty. Falkirk Center for Faith and Liberty. Jesus is our guide on matters of faith, Jefferson on matters of liberty. That combination is what made this the greatest country in the history of the world, and it created individual liberties, and it created the idea that all rights come from God, and government's only responsibility was to protect those rights. And if we ever get away from that idea, we'll no longer be the greatest country. We'll become like every other country. And so that's what we're trying to teach the younger generation, that we have to have those two both in combination, and if we keep those two at the forefront, we'll never lose.
Wonderful words. Check out Jerry Falwell Jr. and Liberty University. Is there any information? Where can people find out more about this initiative? Do they go to the governor's website if you want to find out how your county could join West Virginia? Where should they look?
Each county, each city, the citizens have to start petition drives and petition their local board of supervisors and city council to add it as a referendum in November, and when the presidential election occurs, so they can go and vote for this the same time they vote for Donald Trump. And so I told that to the president this weekend, and he said he liked that. So we just that's all people can do right now, and it will be a non-binding resolution until the Virginia legislature approves each county's action. But the pressure it'll put on the legislature, even if they say no, it'll force them to maybe not be so radical in the future, because they see where the people are headed.
I like
how
that.
strongly we feel, and it didn't, like we said a minute ago, it didn't take a majority of Virginians or colonists to win the Revolutionary War. Just
3%. The estimates are that 3% of the colonists actually fought the British during the Revolutionary War. We've been talking to Jerry Falwell, and a fabulous reminder that this is a unique nation. Not just because it's founded on the principles of individual liberty, because we are made in the image of our Creator, but also because we are a republic constituted of states. And perhaps it's time to redraw those borders. I'm Sebastian Gorka. This is America First on the Salem Radio Network, coast to coast, from just outside the swamp, broadcasting from the ReliefFactor.com studios. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, don't touch that dial.